Alrighty. Oh, boy. All right. See if we can get that to work this time. Alrighty. Hello, everybody. Today I'm going to tune this R32. It's 1990 GTR. I spent yesterday working on setting up the map, all the inputs and outputs, cold start, and all that. The customer had it tuned before, and the other tuner was having issues getting it to start and stay running. So the first thing I did after setting everything up was work on the post start on it. Now the other guy locked the map, and he didn't let me get into it because he said his tune was proprietary, and that was unfortunate, but it didn't matter because it wasn't great to begin with. There were some mechanical issues that they didn't know that they had done with it. They set the map sensor to the wrong line. It was on turbo outlet. It wasn't even on the manifold or on the throttle body side of the engine. So the map sensor wasn't even in the right place. Now he could have tuned it throttle position instead of map base. I have no idea because, like I said, it was locked. But it's map base now, and it runs right. That's for sure. Oh, it's good, man. Owner's a little paranoid about some stuff. Anyways, so now I'm just on the dyno. I'm going to calibrate the tach, and then I'm going to work on the VE map. Not too exciting. This is a Haltech Elite 2500. It's a pretty good system, relatively medium priced, I would say, as far as EMSs go. It's fairly feature rich. I don't like the way they do a handful of things. I think they can be improved, but overall, it gets the job done, that's for sure. And they have lots of vehicles that the system works on with adapted harnesses and all that shiz. So, anyways, right now I'm just going to bring the thing up to about 60 miles an hour, which is 100 kilometers, and set the tach for the dyno, make sure it matches the car. So I'm bringing the speed up now. There's 100 kilometers. Looks like I got about 3550 out of it for RPM. So I got my tach menu on the dyno computer, which you can't see, unfortunately. It'd be really cool if I could stream the dyno screen and my laptop screen directly so you could see what I'm doing. That'd be pretty cool. I wonder if I could figure that out. Maybe use like Zoom and multiple screen share or something like that. That'd be kind of neat. Okay, so the tach is now set. So what I'm going to do now is go to my fuel map base on here. The Haltech has a similar, let's see, bring it close so you guys can see it or not. All 0 of you that are watching. It has menus on the left with all the different tables and everything, and sorted by lambda control, fuel control, ignition angle, boost control, all that stuff. So I'm going to go to base fuel here, and we're just going to hit various parts of this VE map and get it dialed in so I can get the shape correct, and then we'll start adding boost. This is the really long, boring part of it. But I do want to talk about his previous tune a little bit. He had an issue where when you start it, it would die. When it was cold, it would die immediately. And I didn't have that issue, but I think I know why. The base map off of the Haltech has nowhere near adequate post-start enrichment. Nowhere in the post-start routine is it adding enough fuel to, let's do 30 miles an hour, adding enough fuel to form the puddle in the manifold, or in this case, the port and the port of the heads and the runner. The fuel puddle is a very important aspect of tuning. You need to keep that puddle in mind when you're doing your tuning, because you have to take into account what the puddle does under transients. And in starting, the manifold is relatively dry. There's no puddle. The fuel is all either evaporated and it's sitting in the air, just trapped. And as soon as you turn the key and suck in, it gets pulled through the engine, and you have this bone dry manifold. And the post-start fuel is not only adding fuel to the engine, considering how cold it is, but it's also got to add extra fuel, enough fuel for it to get into, to establish the fuel film or the puddle. So the first thing you have to do in post-start is add a butt whack of fuel. And the colder the car is, the longer it's been sitting, the more you got to add initially. And you only do it in the first second. You just add a butt whack. So as soon as it starts, it just dumps a bunch of fuel in it really quick for less than a second, and then it goes down to a more reasonable amount. And what happens is the cars start and idle beautifully. On my car, at the coldest temperature setting, so like -20 Celsius, and at 100% ethanol, I think I'm adding 370% fuel, something like that, and it'll start immediately. You turn the key, boom, boom, and it fires. This thing's on pump gas, and this one's got, I think, 250% fuel at the coldest point. Where we started today, it was right around 140% fuel or something like that, and so it fires up promptly, boom, and just idles smoothly because you're adding all that fuel to the puddle immediately. Now, I can only assume that the other tuner didn't do that. Boy, that is okay. Assume that the other tuner didn't do that, and that's why it was always stalling. But it also could have something to do with where he had the maps reference. However, the map reference was reading a spot that was way higher in pressure than the manifold was. So at idle, this thing is pulling like 15 inches of vacuum, and he had it in a spot that was only reading about 5 inches of vacuum. So that actually would have added a lot more fuel to it immediately. Well, now it's fixed. So that's good. All right, so now here I am. I'm at 1,750 RPM at 30 miles an hour. I'm right at 9 inches of vacuum, 8 inches of vacuum, which is slightly above idle power production. And I'm going to work on my VE curve. I see this spot here. There's a 66 and then a 56 next to it. So that's a pretty significant hole, potentially a significant hole. So I'm going to grab that cell and the ones next to it, like I discussed in a previous video. But I'm only going to lower these cells here because the one next to it is such a big change. And then I'm going to bring the other one closer to it by a little bit. Oops, see too far. Now in this case, I'm right at a crossroads between 4 cells right in this point. So the 4 cells I select are all going to have an effect on what I'm currently doing. And I've got a 3% difference, ish, 2% difference between the left and right cells here that's selected. So I'm going to give it a little throttle and push it more towards the one on the right and see what the air fuel does and my correction. And I'm going to pull off the throttle a little bit and see what the correction does too. And in both cases, it's about 1%. Yeah, that looks actually really good. I'm going to go to the other side, this next crossroads. There's a big jump up right here. I'm going to see if it starts pulling fuel. And in fact, it does. So I'm going to take this one and shrink down a bit. this map I just switched over to is the 4-wheel drive system on it. I just wanted to lock it up and see how it behaved. If I locked it up at 100% versus 0, see how the power changes. So that's a pretty decent power split there. Pretty significant, actually. It's almost like it's not even doing anything. Definitely rear biased. Like way rear biased. What's going on here? Oh, okay. Now it's banned. It was doing really good. And then the Nissan ECU decided to stop giving it power to one set of wheels. Yep, stop putting power to those. So let's click this. Let's go 65, enter. Let's see what it does. Nothing. All right, I'm going to restart the computer real quick. All right, 4-wheel drive light went out. So that should, in theory, help us out. Yep, there we go. It really separates. I know it's boring just look at my hand here and stuff, but this thing really separates. I was surprised. I'm watching the speed difference between the front and rear tires on the dyno, and it's really even, but the torque output varies dramatically based on load. As I add some throttle to it, the bars where the torque absorption from the dyno, the bottom one starts to spread out before the front, and they come back together again. So in steady state low load, they move up pretty evenly, but as I apply more throttle, this sucker grows, which is actually surprising how much it grows. Anyways, okay, so back to my VE map. I'm going to keep working on that for a little while. Actually, since I was talking about it, I'm going to show you that post-start map so you guys get an idea what I'm talking about, how much correction that they need. So if you look at this map, my top cable's too short. Let's pull that sucker. All right, see if we can get here. Okay, so in the left here, in the green, I got 224% at the coldest. At 0, I got 155%. At 20, I got 110. And 40, 60, 69. The car started between 20, right about 20-something degrees Celsius today, which isn't super cold. But normally it would die in that situation. But the 110 was what it needed to stay running. But you see immediately, 1 second, it's 110. 2 seconds, it's down to 40. So there's initial enrichment that's pretty heavy, and that's to establish the fuel film in the runner, and then it dips off into a normal enrichment of what you need just to keep an engine running when it's cold and you have poor atomization, that kind of stuff. So the initial is establish the fuel film, and then the rest of that is to keep the engine running, and as it warms and the port warms and all that stuff equalizes. And you're still adding to the fuel film in these other cells, and if you watch your air fuels during this time versus warm-up enrichment, you can see that whole thing happen. It's very interesting. Let's see. So we're going back to fuel, base. Let's see. Hello, do any chats going on here? I should not ignore anybody. You keep tuning cars I want to own and have tuned. When the hell are you moving to the East Coast? Yeah, man, I am never moving to the East Coast. I did that before, and the East Coast is not my place. People are different over there, and they're too high stress, and I'm already dealing with stress enough, so I'm never going back to the East Coast. That's not happening. I did live in Florida. I lived in Virginia. I lived in New York. And then in the Midwest, I lived in Ohio. Um, I think that's everything over there. A little bit of Connecticut intermittently for the military, but East Coast is not for me. Although I did enjoy Florida. Florida was cool, but it was the 90s, and Florida was awesome in the 90s. Now Florida is just kind of boring. But Orlando was popping in the 90s. There were clubs that were just a fucking blast. That was when the big car stereo thing was really big. Everyone was always cruising with their big stereos and their 18s in the trunk and all that. Like, that was the big thing. Where it was like now Stance is the big thing. Back then it was the car stereos and the clubs, and you know, hip hop was really growing through the 90s and early 2000s. That was and R&B. It was really good. So that was a good time for sure. But I've been to Florida since then. It ain't like that anymore. That is for sure. All right. Oh, there's a spot I gotta adjust right there. All right, let's bring up, put a little more load in it. See where the fuel goes. Looks good. Looks good. Looks a little lean right there. I'm gonna add a smidge of fuel right there. Oh, actually, no, I'm not. I think my AFR target map is off a little bit. Let me fix that. Yep, sure enough. Well, that's not even freaking complete map. Haltech gave us a semi-complete map there. Um, I'm going to use closed loop fueling all the way in the boost. And I think it's going to work fine. We're going to find out. I'm definitely going to set that up. But first I need to set a target AFR based on higher load, which I don't have yet. So this thing stops right at 0. So I'm going to add 20. Oh, this is PSI, not KPA. I almost went 20 PSI. I think it was KPA. So we're just going to do 2, 4. Oh, there's 3, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16. That was 15. I got this set up. 18, 20. This car is not going to see. This car is not going to see more than 20 psi. It's on factory turbos. I think they had it set at 17 on the last tune. I think that's what the owner told me. All right, we'll apply this guy. Open that up. All right, now we'll add some fuel to the boosted regions. Now, RBs can run a little leaner than EJs. Not a lot leaner though. Like, we don't want to go totally ham on it. But they can definitely run leaner than EJs. So we're gonna just bring this table into, we're gonna bring it to low 11s to start off with to establish the VE curve correctly. And then once we get the VE curve ironed out, then I'm gonna lean out a smidge, and I'm just gonna take this and linearize as load increases for now, just as my base target map. So from 2 pounds and up. Okay. That's a little rich at 2 psi. So I'm going to lean that out a teeny bit more right here. Just using the Haltech linearize function for this area of the map. It's just target AFR. It's not a huge deal right now. If it's, tweaked 0.1 AFR in a certain zone, we don't know what the engine totally likes yet. We're just doing an assumption of what we think the engine is going to like. And then when we get to the point where we do the power curve tuning, then we'll move it up, move it down, and we'll see what the engine actually likes. In the meantime, though, I want to get it reasonably targeted so that the ECU knows where it's supposed to go, because it's set for VE tuning, not just pulse width tuning. So we'll set it for the target AFR, so that's what the ECU set targets, and then get the VE to where it matches the target, so then we know that we got the VE map correct. And then when I change the target, the final fueling should follow because VE is already set correctly. So I am going to make the VE map match my target AFR map, or I should say the VE map, the result of the VE map match target AFR map. And then when I adjust target AFR, then I shouldn't touch VE anymore because it should all be correct. And that's what we're doing here. So now I have my target AFR, low 11s and high load, higher RPM. I have it going a little richer. It's a stock motor, stock turbos. They're gonna have more back pressure. There's gonna be a lot more heat load on them, and we don't want them to. We don't want the engine to take a crap on us. All right, so now we go back to VE again. Oh wait, I gotta adjust the cruise area. It's too rich. Too rich right here. On 4 points. All right. All right, there we are. 14.7 in cruise is where we want it. And then add a little bit of load to it. Yeah, there we go. That's quite a bit better. Still needs fuel right there. Still needs fuel. Let's go back to the fuel map. Let's hit that spot one more time. And then we'll add some more VE to it. Now this one, it's interesting because this doesn't use pressure ratio. This only uses manifold pressure. So the V numbers are going to be a little weird. Remember, I don't know if you remember my car. My car uses pressure ratio, which is an exhaust pressure, or the difference, or the ratio between the exhaust pressure and intake pressure. And that's a really good way of tuning, in my opinion, because you can do all kinds of cool shit with it. 2%. That's a lot closer than it was. I like that. Let's add a smidge more. I'd rather be pulling 2% fuel than have it adding 2% fuel. I know it's only 2%. 2% is great, but in all situations, I'd rather be a tiny bit on the richer side than on the leaner side. Right? Richer is always safer. Safe is good. And this owner, this customer specifically wants safe. So we're gonna do that for him. Double check coolant temp, 95, we're good there. Air temp's 51. These are actually in Celsius. So we're gonna do it again, one more load, get some boost into it. We got 2 pounds. Fuel is 0%. All right, like that. So now what I do is, okay, the fuel map looks good in this area. I'm gonna bump the speed up on the dyno, and that's gonna take us to another RPM region here. I'm about 10 miles an hour. That's kind of a big jump in 4th gear. Actually, I'm in 3rd gear right now. It's kind of a big jump. It's going to raise the RPM like 1,500 RPM or so. But I got negative 16% right there. So it's a smidge rich on the VE map right here at this speed. Looks like I have some sort of reversion going on because just below this, it was asking for all that fuel. Now it doesn't want it. So at this RPM here specifically, I definitely have some sort of reversion going because it addresses, I mean, it goes across the whole fuel map here. 15% down here. And here, I mean, and it's almost the same number between these cells, but it's already trying to pull a bunch of fuel out. So this RPM range right at 3,000 tells me that there's some sort of reversion that goes on in this manifold or the exhaust, either one of them, that affects the charging of the cylinders. So up there, I got to pull fuel out quite a bit, and I'm actually surprised by that. But that's how engines work. Woo! Allergies. All right. I'm gonna go up 5 miles an hour and see if that reversion trend continues, or if it's just at that specific RPM. 2 miles an hour increase. I'm gonna see if I can push it in the cell just above it. This one here I just highlighted. Let's see what happens. I still have negative 13 right there, so I'm gonna Chop this one a bunch too. Yeah, quite a bit. All right. Boy, I don't know about you guys, but man, my allergies are flipping killing me out here. And the dyno's awesome, right? Because they got these fans drawing all the pollen and stuff from the outside and pushing it right into the car. All right. This thing runs really well. There's just this wicked vibration at 1400 RPM that scares the shit out of me. Otherwise, though, this thing runs super smooth. I think you guys have more RB experience and are familiar with the vibration these things pick up at 1400 RPM. I did a search online. There's a bunch of people. Is that pollen is redonk in Pennsylvania? Oh, I bet. Yeah, you guys have all those deciduous trees over there too. Yeah, lots of shit going on over there too. The RBs, I did a search. A lot of guys complaining about the vibration these things have around 1400. And this thing, it's scary bad on the engine. You can put your hand on it and the whole engine shakes. The steering wheel shakes, the floor shakes, and the other RBs I tuned hadn't had that. So I don't know if these things have a dual mass flywheel and it's taking a crap or what. If any of you have any idea or any experience with that, I'd appreciate a tip. I'd give it to the customer. We could hopefully troubleshoot this thing and get that figured out for them. All right, so we go up a few more miles an hour here. We go up to 50 and work on the VMAP at 50. And then we're gonna start doing some boost stuff. Yeah, way rich. Way rich. I'm really intrigued by how much the VE drops right here in this region. These things have a really trick manifold. It's almost like it's individual throttle bodies. I mean, they are individual throttle bodies. Right off the head, and then they go into common plenum, and then at the end of the plenum is just a hose coupler where you'd expect to see like a throttle body. These don't have that. And you would think with the individual throttle bodies, you wouldn't have so many weird reversion areas in it, but I suppose that's just the way it is. These things sound so cool. I don't know if you can hear the exhaust or not, but it sounds so cool. All right, only a few percent rich up there, and that's 6 pounds of boost. So we'll knock that down. All right, this VMAP's coming along well. We go one more spot around the 5,000 RPM range, and then we start doing some pulls. Low boost stuff, trying to figure out how the wastegate, how sensitive the wastegates are on these things. This has got a standard, or a, come on, dyno. This has got just a MAC valve on it. It's got a single Mac valve on it for boost control. You know, the standard AM equivalent valve. It might actually even be AM. It's blue Mac valve, who knows. But with the two internal wastegates on it, we'll see how she behaves. Usually I tune these things on rotated setups or top mounts, single turbos, and that kind of stuff. This guy here is really cool. He's really into period correct stuff. And so any modifications that I've done to the car, he wants it to look like factory or the right era. Like injectors even, wants the injectors to look OEM in appearance. So he ended up getting bigger body injectors when he upgraded the injectors on it. Not really the best solution, but it's hard not to respect somebody that wants to, wants to keep it period correct. It's a noble cause in my opinion. Uh-oh. Well, that was weird. The whole car just shut off. The dash lights went out and everything for like 2 seconds. And nothing's warm. Everything's good. Coolant temp's only 90C. Integrity temp's 56. Everything looked good, but there was a click and then everything shut off. That's a weird one, right? Gonna have to buy a car that I've done that, Fox. I have done that. I have had customers even ship me cars from across the country for full builds and then ship them back. In one case, my friend Byron shipped me a car and then he flew out and then we drove it across the country. And I got a fucking ticket too. And I wasn't even speeding. It was bullshit. People didn't like a blue car with a big wing on it. And the cop that pulled me over said they had multiple reports of us speeding, and I quote this, on their highways. It was pretty interesting, that's for sure. I was a little pissed off too, because I was just tooling along in the right lane with the row of cars going the same fucking speed, and this cop comes flying over and like cuts off the car behind me to get behind me and pull us over, and some broad says, you were speeding. No, it wasn't. What are you talking about? But anyways, so I'm not driving your car back for you. All right, well, it's running again. I don't know why it would have shut off. That's really interesting. I'm going to pretend nothing happened for right now. Oh, hey, look at that. The front torque. Oh, no, went to 0. All right, I'm going to do a sweep into boost. I'm only going to go to about 5,500 RPM and see what she does. And that's somebody else's car. Let's see. I've got wastegate duty cycle set at 0 right now. I want to see what base wastegate duty cycle, or wastegate pressure is. Blah, 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 blah. Tongue twister, apparently. See what the base wastegate pressure is, and then go from there. Also see how close the VE map is over here in these cells. All right, that was $6,000. All right, so boost hit 7.5 pounds. So boost was 7.5 psi, and power output was 234. That's pretty surprising for only 7 pounds of boost. Any messages? Let me check messages real quick. Last time I was pulled over in the last decade was for driving too slow in my 18 WRX. I told the cop, this isn't a slow car. He was cool, no ticket. That's fun. Hey, dude. That is pretty funny. There we go. Let's put that on live so I can see him. All right. So VMAP needs adjustment. That is for sure. the fuel goes down to 11 and then up to 12 and then back down to 11 again. And it happens at 5,000 to 5,500 is where it's the leanest. Okay, that's interesting. Oops, this way. But it was good at 6,000. So I'm going to do this. I'm going to linearize and invert. Whoopsie. God dang it. I screwed that all up. I screwed that all up. So I'm going to smooth it towards the top end. Then hit that spot again and see how flat that V curve is in that region. That was a lot better. I got closed loop fueling enabled right now. I was watching. I had about 5% that it was adding through that whole range, and it was pretty steady around 5. But I could definitely change the PID controls for the O2 sensor to help it reach those lambda targets. And so what we do with that is we go over to lambda here. Let's see if you can see it. We go up here to lambda, O2 control, and I have proportional gain, which I said in the last video, if you missed it or not, is that's the instantaneous error or correction based on the instantaneous error. So whatever it's at right now, I have no idea if that's even showing up. Let's see here. I don't know. Anyway, so this is proportional, so it's instantaneous. That helps to just get rid of the big differences, but in the grand scheme, you'll never hit your target if you only rely on this, because if there's no error, then there's no proportional output. So if your target was, say, here, and you were here, and you had a big proportional, it would come up towards it, but it would stop somewhere between the target and where you currently were. That's where integral comes in. Integral, you need to count up. And so the integral counts up and adds. Integral is area under a curve. And so in this case, we're saying how long is it off, right? So the first one, what is it off right now? The second one is basically how long has it been off? And then the last one is derivative, which is the slope of the curve. That's how fast are we attacking our target? How fast are we getting there? So in this case, I have more derivative at higher RPM. Might be too much because it definitely was damping. It was damping its drive pretty aggressively. So I'm gonna turn. That's the wrong button. Whatever I just did, don't do that. Okay, this one. There we go. I'm gonna dampen that down just to a 30 derivative, and instead of the 50 above 4 grand, and that should help it be a little more aggressive. Hopefully, it doesn't hunt too much. If I find that it's hunting around the target, then you can add some derivative to it, and that'll help minimize hunt. Also, you can adjust derivative or integral as well to help minimize hunting. All right, so now we're going to go back to the fuel map. And we're going to add the 5%. It's pretty much 5% from 45 on. I'm going to do the whole map here. P, 5%. Enter. So bam, 5% was added just like that. Okay. Power dropped to 210. So that's a bit of a difference between the previous one and this one, which means that the peak power was probably at that 12 hump. I'm not looking at the power graphs because I don't give a shit really what power was. I was just checking it as a data point between the two poles, but the fuel is way closer, so I'm happy with that. I suppose I could use the logging feature in the Haltech if I wanted to, but right now I'm using what the dyno gives me and what I see in real time. All right, so we're doing it again, and we're going to see if again I have a 5% trend or correction through the power range. Looks like I need a tiny bit of tip in enrichment. That was a lot better. That was good. It needs a little bit of fuel here. It had like a 2 to 3% addition here around 5,500 and 6,000, but over that it went down to 0. So I'm gonna add just a little bit of fuel right here, and then we'll start adding wastegate duty cycle to it and see how the boost responds. This ain't working. There it goes. All right. Let me save my map real quick. So yeah, you see you probably can't see, but this says negative 19 inches. So I've got 19 inches of mercury, of vacuum at idle, and when the car showed up, that was reading -5. So that was obviously not correct, and moving the map sensor to the correct location on the manifold makes all the difference in the world, and makes the car run really well. All right, let's add some boost to this thing, huh? How high should I go? 40, 50? All right, so I know that the wastegate is set at 7.5 psi. So if my boost target, which is upper row, is at 7.5, I don't need to add any duty cycle to it, right? That would make the ascent if I do something like that. So I can leave that at 0. So I'll leave the 7.5 row at 0. Now to get to 8 psi, I'm going to estimate around 5% duty cycle. I have no idea yet. We're going to give that a shot here in a second. And then at 10 psi, around 10% duty cycle, and 11 psi, I'm giving it 20. And then for a target of 14, we're going to say it's about 30%. That might be aggressive. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to set my target, which is currently at 14, down to 10 and see how close I come to hitting that. So I'm going to take this whole area and make it all 10. And then we're going to see how well the boost control system attacks that 10 psi target. We're going to see if boost comes up, flatlines, then comes up again, which would imply they don't have enough integral on it, or maybe too much derivative. Or if the boost spikes over the target and then eventually settles back down again, that could mean that I don't have enough derivative in there because as it's approaching target, it's not pulling away enough of the duty cycle. Or I have too much integral and the integral has wound itself up in a region where you couldn't even hit the target boost. Now, that isn't necessarily the integral either. That could be the target map. If my target boost is higher than it could ever be in that region, and I sit in that region for a period of time, the integral is just going to keep winding up. And then as our RPM moves into a spot where it actually could hit that boost, now my wasted duty cycle is already too high, and the boost is going to overshoot the target, and then you're going to have the integrals have to pull it back down again. Proportional is going to pull it down, integrals pull it down, they pull it back down again, back down to target. So if you have boost that spikes over your target, it's not always a fault of the PIDs. It can very much be that your target boost map is just unrealistic, and that's giving you a big spike. Let's see what we do. So that was interesting. It went up, it built up, and then it spiked at 12.5, and then pew, fell a ton. And since I was stupid and I didn't log it, I can't tell you if wasted duty cycle dipped out the bottom really fast, or if I even blew a hose off. You know, I don't know the answer to that right now. So I screwed up by not logging that and watching wasted duty cycle. And fuel is really, really rich at 12 psi. So over, looks like 8 psi. Over 8 psi, it's getting really, really rich. So I got two things to address. I need a lower duty cycle. Oh no, I need to lower my integral gain. Holy crap. How'd that get so high?
How's she doing?
All right. How you doing?
Good. Just took the one wheel out for a rip.
How was it?
Pretty darn fun.
Yeah?
You'll have to give it a try.
Nope.
Not even gonna try her?
Oh, I might. I'll get a try. I'm just talking shit.
That's funny. I know I passed the window tinting place and a bunch of kids ran outside. They're like, "Hey, can we hop on it and try?" And I was like,
Nope.
"No, it's $2,100, bud."
Yeah.
I was like, "If it's getting broke, I want it to be by someone I either like or someone that I know can replace it."
Yeah.
I came back and the Skyline guy asked about it, and I was like, "I mean, if you want to ride it, you can ride it. I trust you." Like,
that's funny.
But, anywho's, okay. Well, I decided to say hi.
Yep. Just tuning the car.
What?
Just tuning the car.
There you go.
Alright, so what I did is I screwed up. I didn't verify I had the PID control set appropriately. At all. Like, they weren't even close. So, I goofed that up. That's interesting. Oops. Oopsie, too much. I don't know. Alrighty, there you go. Don't want that. Come on. Alright, let's try this again. PID controls are way out of whack. I had that shit set at like 4,000. I didn't do that. That's how Haltech provided it. It was at 4,000, which is really, really high on a wastegate solenoid, on a 3-port wastegate solenoid like this. So let's see if it does a little better. don't like it. Don't like it. I didn't even check and see if that wastegate was even hooked up properly. I mean, they did the map sensor in the wrong spot. They had a lot of things tuned incorrectly. That boost control solenoid may just be fucking wrong. Think about this for a minute. All right, let's do a log on that. Ooh, that's a mess. Tuning channels. Tuning channels. Sorry, I know it's fucking boring just sitting there staring at my back as I stare at the laptop here. I'm just trying to do this, analyze these graphs here. I'm trying to see what I have set incorrectly because the whiskey duty cycle goes from 56 to like 0 nearly instantly right as peak boost approaches. So I'm trying to figure out which map I have set incorrectly that caused that to happen. I'm not finding anything yet, but obviously there's something. If it was a mechanical issue, wastegate duty cycle would be relatively steady and then the problem would occur. But in this case, duty cycle goes from 56 to 0 and then pops back up again all of a sudden. So I'm trying to figure out why that is. And then I got to tune out that rich spike as well. This red trace is AFR. This is about a, what's this, 11? This one? That is 12.4. Boost comes in. It gets down to 9.8. That low dip right there, 9.8. That leans back out to 11.4. And then adds back in again to about 11.1, 11.4. Well, that's interesting. Oh, that's not even AFR. That's funny. What the fuck is that then? So here's AFR here. What the hell looks exactly like AFR? Oh, that's funny. That was ignition. Alright. Why would ignition dip down so much? Okay, get the boost one up. Alright, here we go. Alright. Why am I just killing me? I feel like Sniffy on cocaine or something here. Non-stop. Let's play back. Let's do this again. Oh no, I'll do fuel real quick. Fuel. Let's go back to fuel. So I'm right here. Alright. Oh, look at that. How'd that get in there? Alright. Same thing. Okay, well, the Haltech decided to do some weird shit on me. So I'm going to turn it off and restart it. Yeah, something's funky going on. I just disconnected the Haltech and the engine stopped running. That's some weirdness. Okay, we're running again. That was bizarre. The Haltech was saying that all my inputs and outputs were all misconfigured, and that was not the case, 30 minutes ago. But for some reason, it says they're all misconfigured. So I'm trying to figure out what the hell's going on with that. That's really weird. Let's try it again. One of the weird things with standalones is sometimes they work beautifully, sometimes they are glitchy as balls. MG. Let's see what we got. Mr. Fiscal. Oh, that's funny. I like how you spell fiscal. Thanks for the cooling mod. Hey, man, I'm glad you liked it. My anodizer went down, and it's down for maintenance, I guess. And I had to send a couple hundred kits out that aren't gold anodized. They're still just raw silver aluminum. I didn't want to do that, but I have like 700 back orders. And I talked to IAG, and IAG said, yeah, hell yeah, send them. We don't care what color they are. So there's a bunch of silver ones out now that are going out. I like the gold, though, but unfortunately, the gold makes people think that it's brass for some reason. I get a bunch of assholes on there like, oh, it's just a brass fitting. I could have made that for $2. You get it from Home Depot or whatever the hell they say. And it drives me batshit crazy. But maybe the silver is better because then it shows that it's not brass. But I really like gold. And when I do my strut tops, I want to have those be gold and potentially even the oil pressure or the oil filter housings. I don't know. That might be too much gold in one spot, though. That oil filter with regulator and thermostatic controller. That might be too much gold in one spot. But, who knows. Okay, so we're back online. Let's check our settings again and see if it's still freaking out. Oh, there we go. Okay. Yeah, that was some bizarre shit. Like, it said everything was messed up. That was really, really, really odd. Loose control. Let's see here. Loose control point offsets. Absolute. No, I want higher than that. Oh, max derivative. Look at that. Do you cycle up 33, close it? Okay, that's all good. Yeah, that's good. Well, I'm hot as balls. I took my coat off. All right. Sure. All right, let's try one more time. Come on. Wait, what? Oh, no. What? What the fuck? That's annoying. The cursor isn't following on the ignition map like it's supposed to. The cursor is just following a straight up and down line, even though it should be and moving along the map on the follow feature there. The actual timing matches the map, but the little follower dot isn't going along the load axis; it's just going straight up for some reason. It's not doing that on the fuel map though, so that's good. But I gotta figure out why the fuel map is so darn rich right there. It's weird because earlier we set it. Oopsie. Earlier we set it really close to that, and it wasn't this rich. But now we're hitting this as we're moving through it, and it's really, really rich. So that makes me wonder if I have a transient enrichment situation happening as the boost is climbing really fast, then the transient enrichment is kicking in, which would be weird because I have it set to TPS based. Let's find out. Yeah, throttle position and enrichment. Let's see anything based on map. Double. Now it's doing that again. So mostly when I'm logging or have the logger in playback mode, then all of the inputs show all funky and haywire. Okay, that doesn't work. Let's close that. And the car dies again. That is fucking weird. Closing the logger should not make the car die. Let's just get that out there, right? If I close the logging window, the car should not stop running. So that is truly a bizarre fault to have. Let's see, low to throttle position. Yeah, everything is, all the transient stuff is based on throttle position, not boost. So we will go back to the fuel map. All right, let's try it again. Oof, and that vibration at 1400 is not getting any better. When it, yeah, it comes through that 1300, 1400, the whole car shakes. That might be getting worse. Yeah, I'm not a fan of that. Maybe I'll do just a little more of this and call it quits, because that's really bad. I've informed the owner like 3 times that the vibration is really bad, so it shouldn't be a surprise to them if I stop the tune because of it. That was a lot better. Still not perfect, but much improved. So what I found is that in this region here, at the beginning of the pole, the ECU is adding 9% right here. I didn't load it up at 2,000 RPM into 3 or 4 pounds of boost before, so it's actually adding some fuel there, and that correction is carrying over through here as we sweep through kind of quick. In addition to it being too high there, it's also carrying that correction through. So I'm going to adjust this area. It's less than that's highlighted. I'm going to adjust this area here so that the correction doesn't start applying into this zone as I pass through it again. So that's the root of one of the problems there. And the boost control is much smoother this time, which is good. I just need to make a few more tweaks to that and then start adding the target boost up. And the fuel map doesn't fall all the way down to 9-1 anymore. It went as rich as 11.0 and has a couple little lean blips to 12, but it's way closer than it was. So that's good fucking news. Pardon my French. So let's adjust this a little bit. Oops. So this region right here needs more fuel. And then I'm going to smidge lean at 52. Probably because this guy pulled so much fuel out of it trying to fix that issue. And it wasn't that issue, so. Some weird changes in the fuel map going on with, and I can only assume with reversions and other weirdnesses, but you know, whatever. That is tuning. All right, I'm gonna add a little more boost. I woke the fuck up. That's for sure. 300 wheel. I picked up 50 wheel horsepower with that small change in boost. That's pretty crazy. Had a little buck to it. The boost went up and then back down again. We'll see here in the graph in a second. But it sure woke up. All right, now on, I'm just gonna turn the engine off when I'm reviewing logs. There we go. All right, so boost spiked to 16 pounds, and then dipped down to 9, and stabilized at 12. So I'm seeing that around 12 psi, I need 40% duty cycle. And it hit 16 at 55. So I'm going to make my base duty cycle closer to those. And I'm going to get the base closer to those, and I'm going to turn down the proportional, integral, and derivative stuff to let them just make fine tuning instead of these large changes. Because right now the base was at 10, for example, and it was counting up really far. Part of that again was due to my target boost map being too high for that region, so I'm going to change the target boost map a little bit too to match what the turbos are capable of doing, or at least be close. That'll keep the integral from counting up too much, and then I'll set the base closer to where it needs to be originally, and that should make the system more stable instead of so erratic like it is right now. Just gonna block it right here. I should reduce that there. Come on. Alright, let's find out. Well, boost was super steady, but it was super laggy too. Needs more aggression. Fuel was improved. One rich spot right around 5,800. And I really only got 9 pounds of boost out of it. We're trying spool assist. And after I check the fuel map real quick, we'll turn on the spool assist, which is their version of it's like lean spool, but it's not lean. It's actually just aggressive stage 3 type boost control. Boy, it does not like it when I close the logger while it's running. That's crazy. Starting to look like normal curves. See that? A little rich. 10.4 in this spot right here. $315 wheel though. That's more than I thought this thing would do. All right, let's do it again. Boy, that makes it angry. Oh yeah, that's way better. Fuel is almost a flat line at 11, and boost is almost a flat line at 10, 9.5, 10. So that's nice. Time to start turning it up some more. Still a little spike though. I don't see it the tailpipe. ECM shows me a rich dip somewhere. Oh, that's after the pull's over. Okay, never mind. Oh yeah, that's way nicer. It's not much better. Oh, interesting. The dyno is only showing 10 pounds of boost, but the manifold is showing 14. However, the dyno I hooked up to the turbo outlet, but it's on the wastegate solenoid line. So clearly the solenoid's bleeding off pressure to that oh, my phone's blowing up here. So clearly that boost line that I chose for the dyno was not a good line because the solenoid's bleeding off pressure to it, which I expected when I plugged it in, but it was the most available line that I had for the dyno. But I'm hardly using that reading to tune. I'm using what the ECM sees, and the ECM sees 14 psi, pretty steady now with the boost control. So I'm really happy about that. That's working out really well. And the only issue I'm having that I can tell is that the dyno and this car are arguing about how much power to put to the front and rear tires. And so during the pull, there's a little whoa, whoa, whoa during it. I'm pretty sure it feels like the dyno. It doesn't feel like the engine misfiring. The engine feels smooth through that pull. So what I can do is I can bring up my dyno graph and check out the road force, or the traction force they call it. Yeah, it's wavy. It's going wah, 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 which is expected. Let's do front. Yeah, they're both wavy. Wow. Power curve looks really good. Here, I'll show you. Where's the release of this damn thing? I'm not usually on this side of the phone. See if you can see it from there. Let me flip this around. Hi. Look at my hair. It's getting so long. Wow. My Rona hair. But oh, and it's falling out too. Sweet. All right, let's see here. Do 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 do. So that's the power curve on the top, and that's what the dyno sees for boost on the bottom. Again, it's on the wrong line, so it's not very good. If you look at my log here, zoom back in. The green line there is what the ECM is seeing for boost. A little wave in the middle, but not too crazy. Do I still build the 2.7 liter stroker motor? I'd never built a 2.7 liter stroker motor. Yeah, we didn't do the 2.7s, man. We did the 2.6, which was just a 102.3 millimeter bore on a 79 stroke. We did a 2.5, which was de-stroked by putting a 75 mil crank under that same 102.3 bore, which gave us 2.5 liters with a short stroke of 75, which was a lot of fun. That thing really ripped. And then we did a 2.6 that was factory bore with an 83 mil crank, a stroker crank in it, but didn't like those at all. Those just didn't perform very well. Rod ratio was already so fucking shitty with those; it was bad. But if I ever finish this tall deck block that I'm working on for the EJ, we'll be able to throw an 83 mil crank in it and still have 2 millimeter longer rods than stock, maybe even 15 mil longer than stock. And that's a huge jump, but I'm working on this tall deck block system. And if I can do that, I think we're going to see some very, very surprising things. I was trying to do a cast iron Subaru block, an EJ block in cast iron, so that we wouldn't have to worry about the mains, because the mains move around so much. I don't know if you've seen them. The mains, like number 2 and 4, have actually cracked on the backside from the crankshaft pushing into the main, and then the bearing sits like this, right? And so all the forces are being pushed right there, and the webbing or the support for that is just a vertical face that spans across 2 cylinders, or between the cylinder. I can't fucking talk today. Words are hard today. All right, I'm sorry about that. But it goes across the cylinder, and so there's no reinforcement in the middle, and that bearing support bends with force and then breaks on my knuckle side and cracks. And that's why one reason why you see 2 and 4 are always so freaking worn out on these things, is because they undergo a lot of stress. They're the narrowest bearing, but they're in between 2 opposing cylinders, and so they see a lot of force back and forth. And so pinning the mains helps with that by when the aluminum does this, right, it gets shorter at the top. So if I pin it, when it tries to push outward, it's pulling the pins, so both sides of the block support that load better. Not perfectly, but better. So I thought, well, hell, if you make it out of iron, then it ain't going to flex near as much as the aluminum does, and that issue would go away, and we have a lot less issues with bearings and, well, period, rod and main bearings and wear. Then we have to worry about if the crank is sturdy enough at that point. Is the crank flexing and pushing the block, or is the block flexing a lot and the crank is therefore able to flex? So some guys throw billet cranks in their shit and they break them. Well, for me, that makes me think that the billet crank is stiffer than the block, but the force is still causing it to bend some, and the block isn't supporting it enough, so then the crank breaks because the block isn't providing the support where the crank needs it. So if I was to strengthen the block, then the crank would have better support on all 5 mains, and it's less likely to flex as much and break. So I want to do that, but it's like 40 to 60 grand in tooling to get a cast program together for a block. And then on top of that, you have all the machine work after you have a cast block. So that's a lot of bread. That's a lot of freaking money. I would need to have a huge group buy of people wanting to get on that shit. Because in the end, if you get people to buy them, I should be able to sell them for around 5 grand, which is half the price of the billet blocks. And they're going to be way stronger. Yeah, they're going to be like 60 pounds heavier. But when I add the tall deck to it, and you now have a 2,000 horsepower capable EJ, like, is that 60, 80 pounds going to freaking matter anymore? I don't think so. So the other option I have is try to make a main bearing support system, which I do have one drawn up in CAD. And the block would have to be machined to facilitate that. And I'm not going to say anything more about that because that's that project I have in the works right now. So I might be able to take a factory aluminum block and machine it in such a way that I can add main bearing supports to it to help minimize the flex of the mains and keep the cranks more straight and rigid. And I think that would help a ton. And then also be able to add add to the deck height. And I don't want to go into too much of that. I got it all drawn up. It looks like it'll work. It's just going to cost a lot of money in R&D. And I've been in school for the last freaking 5 years, so I haven't bothered doing any of that, actual production of it. But now that I'm out of school, I'm hitting that more aggressively. But COVID's got everyone locked in their houses, and all my machine shops are on skeleton crews, so I haven't been able to do any of that yet. But I think this year is going to be a good year for the EJ. I think I'm going to do some cool shit with that. So I'm really excited about that. And I need a haircut, but I'm not going to do it. I want Con Air fucking flowing locks. You know, like the fuck is his name? The guy from Con Air. I was looking at one of those things. I read that OE coils are prone to water. Oh, and the RB. Oh, it does have OE coils on it. I'm not getting any misfires though. The vibration isn't a misfire. It's definitely a mechanical vibration. And it only happens at 1400 RPM. If it was a bad coil, then most likely what would happen is it would start to misfire when you're in boost. And when you load the system the most, then that's the hardest time for the coil packs. You have high RPM, so you have less time available. Nick Cage, thank you very much. Yep, you have less time available to charge the coil, so the spark isn't as strong. And then you also have more air fuel between the electrodes of the plug in high boost, because at high boost you also enrich the mixture up, right? And fuel and air don't conduct electricity, so you need enough spark energy to ionize those molecules between the electrodes of the spark plug. And the more molecules you have, the harder it is, right? The more voltage you need, and the amount of molecules in there is directly related to the air-fuel ratio and the manifold pressure, right? How much is in that cylinder? How much boost do you have in that cylinder? So how much volume was pushed into the 2.5, or this is less than 2.5 liters, or I'm trying to say individual cylinder volume on these, I think is what, 0.4 liters or something like that. Yeah, just like 0.4.5 or some shit, 425. Anyway, so then you have, double that volume you put in the cylinder, and so therefore you have twice the density of air and fuel, plus the more extra fuel from the richer AFRs. Man, words are just killing me today. Sorry, guys. Anyways, I need to turn on the freaking ventilation in this car because it's getting hot in here. And I need to take a break and get some water and some food. I'm going to do a walk around on the car so you guys can see it really quick, so you can see what this thing is instead of seeing the inside of it. And let's see. So it's a 1990 R32 GTR. It is very hot in here. I'm going to take off all my clothes. Is that okay with you? Come on. There we go. Okay. It's in pretty good shape overall. It's a pretty color. It's got the factory wheels on it, though. I think the old wheels were a little small for these things. They look kind of goofy, but stock 26. Looks nice though. Alright, I'm going to cool off and take a break. I appreciate you guys hanging out. If you have any questions, feel free to email me. Dominic@GetaDomTune.com, or shoot me a message on YouTube. I do read these. Yeah, looks like I saw the ones around there so far. So thanks very much. Have a good one.